Okay, eyes closed, everyone. 1, 2, 3, eyes closed. And you can open your eyes again. There we go.
Në firmat e tjera, e para, rroga jepet në datën që është thënë. Siguracionet, po, ndaj shteti, sepse në firmat e tjera kemi punuar dhe nuk është bërë kjo pjesë. E kupton, është mbajtur para dhe nuk është bërë, si në Shqipëri. Domethënë janë shumë familjar. Të kuptojnë, i kemi shprehur hallet tona, problemet tona dhe na i kanë zgjidhur. Po, kanë ndodhur, po. Domethënë fillimisht unë kam qenë pa lek aty ku kam punuar fare, domethënë 6 muajt e para. Po. Kemi pasur probleme se dhe me fëmijë, me kështu edhe nuk donin t'ja dinin fare, duhet t'jesh në punë, ndryshe pushohesh nga puna. Ndërsa këta na kanë mirë kuptuar, na kanë shumë më mirë. Po ka. Për shembull, kemi pasur raste, kemi ndenjur jashtë orari, si çdo rroba qepësisë ka. Në vendet e tjera nuk na janë paguar, ndërsa këtu orë shtesë, po, kanë qenë shumë të rregullt në këtë pjesë. E ulta pastaj ka nga 100, unë jo.
Po si paguani 100 kur me ligj është 220?
E kupton.
Do t'i kalojnë.
E kupton, ja, po kjo ndodh ajo e siguracionit. E kupton që si ishim të deklaruar fare ndoshta.
Tani ta fillojmë nga personeli. Këtu ndjem shumë herë më mirë, janë shumë të sjellshëm. Kishte raste, gjithë muaj ishte punë. Edhe paga që merreshim ishte shumë minimale, pa sigurime.
Sa ka qenë paga maksimale që unë marrë?
Ishte me orë, 700 lekë ora për total.
700 vjetra?
Të vjetra. Po sa shkonte 31 ditë, rroga më e madhe që unë merrja atje ishte 180.000 lekë të vjetra. Komplet muaj. Me ulta tani. 120. 120. Po që e dilshim me shpresa se do ndryshojnë, derisa e lash fare. Në atë kohë asnjë nuk ishe i siguruar, se unë kam 2 vjetë që e kam lënë atë. Asnjë. Llogarit është tani 7-8. Kishte edhe ditë me orë shtesë. Atë diku ke, po.
Po me ulta që ke marrë?
Si, nuk e kuptova? Të thash, para shumë vitesh, që ka qenë viti 3, viti 4, që mund të kem punuar, që kam punuar në një firmë kpucësh, italiane, 4.000 lekë dita. Në qoftë se punojnë dhe të tjere, dhe imja bashk, është normal. Tani, tu në Shqipëri është pak e vështirë. Po, ka shumë mënyra tjera që në qoftë se është vetëm rroga ime nuk ja del.
This is the reason that I do the type of work that I do. My name is Veerle Luiting, and I'm a business developer for a sustainable and innovative fashion industry. And I'm very grateful that you're all here tonight, because I know that I'm looking at a very mixed audience with, besides friends and family, also industry professionals, people that I don't know by face, but that were interested in either fashion or sustainability, human rights or development work. And I'm very, very grateful that you're here tonight. What we saw here in these interviews are two things. One is that there are still many challenges to face in the fashion industry, even in Europe. But on the other hand, we also hear that these ladies are in a place right now where they feel safe and respected. So we see that there are ways to do things differently. And tonight I'm going to take you on a journey to a country and to a very specific industry. And we're going to see the challenges, and we're also going to see the people that work on solutions. Today's program is as follows. These are the 3 chapters that we will go through today. And chapter 1 and 2 start right now at 8 o'clock. And chapter 3 will start with you in roughly 45 minutes from now. Because this film project didn't just end right before we came here. You are still part of this project, and this is an ongoing project, and we are still filming and creating stories today all together. So, if this story would have been about Albania as a country, I would have been able to fill the evening with UNESCO sites, with beautiful pictures of bounty beaches, of restaurants, with splendid food tables, of tiranas, well, vibrant nightlife. But I'm showing you the industry. And that means that I show you the images of the factory sites, of the neighborhoods where the workers live. And those pictures look different. But what I would like you to be aware of is that there are many sides to one country, and that I'm showing you the industry tonight. So if you ever have the chance to visit Albania as a country, do so. 2 of my friends are laying on the Albanian beach today. They stepped into the plane last night. So this is not the type of pictures you will see tonight. But please keep this in mind. Why Albania? Well, that started in the summer of 2014, when I started interning at MVO Nederland, CSR Netherlands. CSR stands for Corporate Social Responsibility, the biggest sustainable business network in the Netherlands. It was my first task to help to organize a mission to Albania's garment industry, a country I couldn't even point to at the map. Well, that soon changed, and together with 7 Dutch textile experts, we visited numerous factories. We came back a second time in April this year. This time I was freelancing, and we organized local capacity building programs. Programs in which I met a lot of young people. And these young people, they asked me to come back. And there was no way of saying no. So together with these young Albanians, we came back to visit the factories and to tell their story. And to film, so we can share these stories with you tonight. The team consisted of Gerion Treska, our translator, local counterpart, Viona Etemi, our assistant, also translating and transcribing interviews until late night. And she introduced us to her classmates as well, fashion students. And we discussed their future in this industry and whether there is a future at all for them. So what did we do exactly? We interviewed people. We interviewed, I think, 30 people in 1 week, which meant that we were driving back and forth all around the country. We visited different stakeholders in the fashion system. And that means that we didn't just interviewed garment workers and asked for their working conditions. It means that we also interviewed their employers to ask about their perspective. We interviewed teachers, other students, business developers. And why did we do this? Well, because it is fairly easy to paint a picture from here, from the Netherlands, figuring out what possibly could be a solution to issues being present in Eastern Europe. And it's very easy to point at good guys and bad guys when we talk about the fashion system. As we all know, it's not always as pretty as it looks like up front. But this is not a story about good guys and bad guys, but this is a story about a system, how it works, and what type of people are active in the system and what their point of view is. Let's start a little bit with some facts and figures about this country and this industry, so you will understand why it is so important. In Albania, a very small country, on the other side of the Adriatic Sea, next to Italy, we find about roughly 1,000 garment and shoe factories. And that's a lot, if you keep in mind that in Albania there are about 3 million inhabitants. So this sector, it makes up for almost 40% of the export numbers of Albania. So it's a very important sector for the country. It has a huge impact on the country. And it employs roughly 100,000 people. And as we saw in the interviews right before, not everyone's registered. So it is very hard to give a specific estimation of the amount of workers, but it should be around 100,000. Maybe it goes up to 150,000. The percentage of female workers is very high. 98% of the workers are women. And by now I've visited about 40 factories, and indeed I've seen hundreds of women working there. And one specific thing is that they are all around my age. Some are older, some are even younger, but it is very strange to walk into a factory and to see 100, 200 women working there that are the same age. These are the employers of those people, of those workers. And my biggest respect goes to them, because they were willing to invite us in or to let us in, as we are young people. We were there with a camera. We are not clients, so we didn't bring in any business. Well, not directly. And they were still willing to talk with us and to show us their premises and to show us also what's actually on their mind, being active in this business. So these factory owners, I'll introduce you to them one by one. The first one is Ilda Silari. She is the people manager at a social factory called Citytex. Citytex produces workwear for one client at the moment. And the next one is Ray, and Ray is also my age. He's the next generation factory owners. He's taking over the company from his parents, and he produces for the high-end Italian luxury market. And he's not the only one in Albania. And Di Viola from Zibritex produces for the upper mid-segment. So that means high-quality shirts, men's shirts, blouses. These people have work for slightly different segments, but they all have a couple of things in common. And that is the following, besides the fact that they were very open and very willing to show us around.
Customers you currently work with or have worked with in the past 7 years? Which countries do they come?
Only from Italy.
Okay.
Only from Italy.
And where did you meet them? How did you start the business together?
In Albania is produced almost all the Italian market is producing in Albania. I said you before that everyone is not producing in China or in Bangladesh, India, because there are big factories and low quality. Also in the north of Africa, they are not producing there anymore because there is war in almost every country, and they don't feel secure for their investments. And the only place which is near and they found very comfort with also with the language is Albania. And all the Italian companies are producing here in Albania. That's why we produce also for Italian.
So you might all be very curious who these labels are. And I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but I made very clear agreements with the factory owners. Yes, they are producing for the high-end luxury market for Italian fashion brands, but they also sign contracts with their clients that state that that information does not leave the factory. So, and again, I'm not here to name and shame, and that's one of the reasons that I wouldn't tell you exactly, but what I can tell you is that a handful is to be found at PC Hoofdstraat. Besides a common client, namely Italy, which makes up for more than 80% of the clientele of the Albanian garment industry, these factories have a couple of other things in common. The first thing is that factories in Albania pay their workers, in the best case scenario, a legal minimum wage. That's the wage for a garment worker. This wage is at the moment 24,000 lek, and that's the equivalent of 179 euros a month. Garment workers work 6 days a week, usually. And why is this something to mention? Well, because we will see that the legal minimum wage is not the same as a living wage. And even in Albania, 179 euros is very little. It doesn't even make up for the rent on itself of an apartment. So this is the standard in the entire local industry in this country. Besides that, all these factories are working under other people's instructions. And you'll soon see what that means. And they focus on only a very small part of the production process. Now, why are these second and third items so important? They explain the business model of the industry. And they also explain us why there is a legal minimum wage and why that wage is so low. It's called CMT production. CMT stands for cut, make, trim. And this is the part of the production process where the margins are the lowest in the entire production chain. Cut, make, trim is just a small part of a very long process, which I will show you here. In order to make a garment, many steps are necessary. And I won't go very deep into this, but I will just explain you what Albania's position is in the supply chain. The Italian brand, usually, takes care of the designs, of the accessories, of the raw materials, like the fabrics, and in most cases also of the patterns. That means that all the patterns are bundled based on size and on style and on production line, and they're imported to Albania. That means that only the sewing, so only the putting the patterns together, is the only step that happens in Albania, under the lowest margins. The third step would be to label and pack the garments and to ship them back to Italy, where they are redistributed to stores, wholesalers, and retailers. And it looks like this. Viola showed us in her factory how it goes. We see that the patterns are bundled based on size and style, and this is how she receives them. This means that she is not the owner of the materials she works with. It also means that she cannot decide what she does with the material, what the pricing should be or what the lead time should be, because she has only one client and with only one client who has all the materials and all the resources, to whom you're merely a subcontractor, there's not much room for any development on the Albanian side. So after these patterns and all the accessories, even the threads and the buttons are usually imported, the items are sewn together, which is the make part after cut. And after the making, we will see that everything goes to the control department. And the control departments are very important, because these are the departments that take up sometimes up to 10 or 20% of the factory, because every small error could result into a huge fine from the client. And then there's the folding. If you ever see these shirts in Bijenkorf, in these packages, and they are completely neatly folded, and you wonder, how is this possible? Who is doing this? Well, it happens like this, in quite a tempo, as you can see. And since the Albanian subcontractors usually work for only one client, it means that there's not much room for negotiation. Even the cut waste that you see here cannot be used and reused in order to set up any recycling programs or anything beyond the current assignment. And the labeling department, if there is a labeling department, because not every factory that I've seen has a labeling department. In Europe, we have rules for labels. A label indicating the country of origin is usually put in the garment at the finishing phase. So that means that where the finishing is interpreted to happen, that's where the label is sewn in. Usually this happens in Albania, with a beautiful Made in Albania label, but not always. Because as a subcontractor only performing that very small part, you do not know what happens with the garments afterwards when you send them back. You're not the owner of the design or the material or anything. And Ray has something to say about that.
Di që Made in Albania kushton më pak se sa Made in Italy. Edhe bën këtë diferencimin. Megjithatë kualiteti I copës edhe I qepjes është njësoj, vetëm ideja që është bërë në Shqipëri edhe.
You might recognize the image or the feeling you get from a Made in Italy quality label. Well, it doesn't guarantee that a Made in Albania or a Made in Romania or Made in Bulgaria label is of any lesser quality. How did this CMT model start in this country? Let me take you back to 1946. Between 1946 and 1992, Albania was under the communist regime. It was a very strict regime, and the borders were closed. You could speak of the North Korea of Europe. It was a very hard time, and during this time, most of the companies and factories were state-owned, and most of the production had to happen in-house, so within the borders. That means that the garment production factories were full cycle, meaning the full production process took place there. After the fall of the regime, suddenly there was an open market, and there was a highly skilled labor force that was capable of performing the whole process. But there was also a very hard economic time, and foreign investors saw their chance right away and came in and found this highly skilled labor force for the minimal price. That was in the early 90s. And after that, in the past 25 years, not that much has changed.
Paper is 22 or 24,000, the minimum that they take.
And does the lady think that that is a living wage?
Jo, nuk jetohet.
është shumë e vogël.
Very small.
Sidomos për ato familje që të dy njerëzit, burë e grua, dhe kanë disa fëmijë, jetojnë me minimumin po morën kaq. Por mendo pastaj që ka sa si puna e teknikës time, që i kanë dhe shtëpinë me qira, është akoma më e vështirë.
Yeah, sometimes you can better laugh about things. The Clean Clothes Campaign has conducted a research in Albania in 2014. And after numerous interviews with workers, they estimated that a living wage for a family of 4, mother, father, 2 children, would be 588 euros. And it's hard to see that since the fall of the regime, the essence of the business model of this particular industry hasn't changed so much. And we see that the result is that the legal minimum wages are still very low, not only in garments, but especially there. You might wonder, why do you care so much? This is the moment when something hit me. This was in 2015, during the first MVO Nederland mission to Albania, when I was an intern, still a student, never been in a factory before. I was already all about sustainable fashion, but this was the first time I saw it in real life. This was during one of the factory tours, when the Dutch delegation was led around in English, and I just learned a few words in Italian in school and figured I could talk with the workers, because Italian is the second language in the country. And this is a woman that I just happened to have a moment with, a very, very short moment, a stranger. And in that short moment, she was very open to me. And as a young woman, being faced with another woman in another place, it struck me what she said. That was the following. She said, I came to the point where I don't care anymore about the low salary. Low is low. 10 euros more or less don't make the difference in my life. And we garment workers, we just learn to survive, basically. Okay. And then she continued. It's about dignity. That's what really matters. It's about being treated as a human and not as a machine. And she repeated these words in Italian, but I clearly remember them. I am not a machine. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a woman. I have a name. And I remember asking, what do you mean you have a name? And she said, well, I have a number here. And not every factory looks like this. But this was the reality at that moment. And this was the moment that I just couldn't forget. And that's also the moment that this started getting under my skin and why we are here today talking about this. Your responsibilities as a factory towards your workers. What is it that you can do for them?
Si shihni përgjegjësi tuaja ndaj punonjësve, domethënë çfarë ndjeni se duhet bërë?
Në përgjithësi, ne tani jemi në fillimet tona. Por ne mendojmë që në të ardhmen, përveç punës, se t'i krijojmë kushtet sa më të mira për të punuar, që të ndihen sa më mirë këtu te ne mendojmë që të hapim edhe një kopësh për fëmijët e tyre, me qëllim që ata të jenë mirë, ta dinë që fëmijët i kanë këtu, pa leke, jo të paguajmë lek ata, dhe kemi në të ardhmen mendojmë të bëjmë dhe menzën, dhe drekën t'ja u japim falës.
What does a company like this need from a client in order to be a social company?
Çfarë nevojitet një kompani si juja nga një klient që të vazhdojë të qëndrojë sociale?
Në qoftë se çmimet do janë të mira të kompanisë që na vjen, sepse kur vijnë kompanitë e huaja këtu, gjën e parë që pyesin sa është paga minimale. Dhe çmimet që bien janë çmimet e fundit që ata mund të japin fitim, janë shumë të ultat. Çmimet jashtë
Ne për shembull kemi këto pantallona që bëjmë ne. Këto bëhen të ne dhe bëhen në Rumani. Në Rumani çmimi është shumë herë më i lartë se sa na i sillin ne këtu. Kjo diferencë bën që ti fitimin ta kesh më të vogël. Dhe këto ëndra që ke, mos i realizosh dot.
Always keep laughing. So what I learned when talking with that woman was that that the salary is not everything, and that you cannot solve everything with a business model, and that at some point the human factor comes in, and it all starts with people and how one person treats the other one. And I asked Ilda about the other things besides a salary that could improve anything, just anything. And what she mentioned is that as a social factory, she clearly has a very, very clear vision on how to organize that. But she cannot do it by herself. It also shows us that with a little bit extra on top of a minimum, you can create a major impact if you work together with a factory owner that has this vision.
It's a time for really beautiful clothes, luxury, clothes that women can feel secure and empowered in. And I've talked for so many years about empowering women. And I wish there was another way to express that, because I don't want to repeat myself, but never was there a time when that was more relevant.
Impact, women empowerment, these are all very trendy words right now. And they're very important. Especially the fact that companies can be very proud if they do something with this. And I totally agree with Victoria Beckham. And I think it would be really cool if we can indeed empower women, but not at the cost of the other one. And Ilda and her technician had something to say about that as well.
Ne duam klientë të mirë që të na trajtojnë si të barabartë.
Sidomos femrën vetë si gjini, domethënë të vlerësohet më shumë se është nënt në radhë parë, dhe kur vjen këtu është një figurë në familje. Dhe duhet vlerësohet sidomos profesioni që jepet këtu.
Po ndërkohë dhe pagesa.
Po normal duhet vlerësohet në pagesë që ajo të marrë një figurë, se ku punon në robaqepsi. Vërtet robaqepsia është një vend shumë i lodhshëm, por realisht është I papagushëm.
Usually companies in Albania are client driven. So if the client maybe is asking for CSR, they are willing to do it for sure. So if the client changes, then whatever they do changes. And this is due to the fact that mainly the client has been Italy, that is very close by, and so far experience has shown, and also in the interviews that you will see and that you had, shows that their focus is only on low price, but also high quality. Like due time, like delivery should be like very fast and whenever they want it, and so this all brings up to the core of the product. The other visits that were from delegations from CSR Netherlands, in a way they gave us some hints and a picture of the CSR of the Dutch CSR concept about the companies and what is happening in there. And I must say the truth is that there is a gap of what we're doing and how CSR driven Dutch companies work. So if we have perhaps Dutch companies that see the potential to partner and to team up with Albanian garment factories, then for sure they will see at the social side as well. And frankly speaking, if you pay them just the minimum paycheck, you cannot do that much on the social side. So in order to do on the social side, it's a matter of changing also the mindset and also having the means in terms of resources to do it. So in this moment, Italian companies that are our client are not willing to do it, and that is why CSR it's barely seen in Albanian garment factories.
Because you might wonder that if these factory owners are so aware of the low wages that they pay, and if they're so aware of the conditions, then why doesn't anything change? And I think Giri explained it very well here to us, that it's not so much a matter of a choice right now, but it all starts with a collaboration on each side. And that takes two parties that have a common vision and do something together. We also talked with another business developer, one of our local consultants, somebody who knows the garment sector very well. And he explains us how he thinks that beside cooperation with partnering companies, maybe from North and Western European countries, what factories could do in terms of orientation on how they can deliver more value, so they become even more interesting for instance, Dutch companies to collaborate with. And what I found very interesting about the conversation with Giri is that he emphasized the fact that most of the factories are so very client-driven. And I think it's important to emphasize that this client-drivenness is not that much of a strategy, it's more of a survival mechanism. So why am I mentioning Dutch brands and why am I even encouraging in this direction? I'm doing that because if you only have one type of client in an entire market, this type of client can just dictate a lot. And that doesn't give us a healthy economy. A healthy economy needs competition and needs differentiation in a market. So the moment that Dutch companies start to, become aware of the fact that Albania is an interesting place to source and enter that market, we see that there is a different demand coming in, different pricing coming in. And that should encourage the other client to stay very focused on the type of assignments they outsource there. So, shortly put, differentiation in the clientele would help the sector a lot, and that would be a first step. The other business developer is called Goyaertsmeijer, and he's explaining us a little bit more about what the factories can focus on in order to become more of an interesting sourcing partners for Dutch brands.
Albania is being promoted as a CMT country, cut, make, trim, so only a few processes. But in fact, we encounter now that if you want to do that process, you have to have a lot of numbers, horizontal numbers, which means that you have to have companies offering 300, 500, 1,000 employees. We don't have these companies anymore, so now it can be the proper time to look at value chain development, at vertical development. So we nowadays see companies which are with 100, 120 people, 200 people, 50 people, who should be more specialized into value chain development, like starting from maybe not the design right now, or the design can be a phase to get them attracted, but for sure the pattern making, for sure being able to invest into raw materials, for sure having to train their people and develop value chains, connect them with the existing cut, make, trim, connect that with the packaging industry and the labeling industry, and then connect them also with the end buyer who are looking for full package solutions. In the last 20 years, the Italians have been the gateway to Albania. Now, Albania has to be its own gateway and then be exposed to more opportunities.
Shortly put, what Goyaert is saying is that it's very important that factories also start to look at the other steps in the production process and that they not just focus on that very, very limited part. And then the question, of course, would be, well, what does the industry have to offer for those Dutch clients that we so much like to come in and explore the country? Well, it starts, of course, with something that many sustainable brands find very important, which is the proximity. If garments are made on the other side of the world, you need a lot of transport and a lot of time before you can actually receive the garments back home. It's also harder to control and visit the manufacturer. Right now you can fly in 2 hours and 45 minutes to Albania. That's a different distance than China, for instance. So the proximity is something very important. The quality production, so the highly skilled workforce, and the competitive pricing. And this remains a very important aspect for every brand, because in essence, of course, brands are businesses as well. So we cannot expect them to become charity organizations, but even by being a business, it is interesting to see that Albania is still a country with lower wages, but that means that every little extra that you bring in could go to positive impact, as long as you have a clear vision on this. Companies are very eager to learn new parts of the production process because, of course, they know that this is vital in order to develop. And it is rather easy to generate a social impact with just a little bit of attention. And to realize what the impact is of this industry in this country, since we all know by now how much the country depends on it. And then besides these business aspects, there is something else that I find most inspiring about Albania. And that is not the businesses, but it's some of the people. And it's especially the young people. Because when you have everything, when you know you go to a very good school and you'll find a nice job afterwards, there is a different mentality if you do not have that certainty. And if you have to work really hard for something that's not for granted. And I asked Gary again, so, okay, now we know a lot about the industry, but what about the young people in there? And he had something to say about that.
The new generation is being oriented very much. They're being very sensitive on CSR. They're being very sensitive also on the impact that they can have wherever they are, part of different companies, small, medium enterprises. And also the young entrepreneurs that start business, they want to have impact on the society. So the young generation has so much potential, and they just need to realize it. That the potential that they have can change the system.
And Gary is not just talking the talk. And that's why, of course, I put him in there, and he's even here with us today. Because he and Stella Salaku, they both run a fashion house. And when we met each other 3 years ago, they were at the starting point of their label. And they were merely involved with social projects besides starting up a design house, which is very hard in Albania to do so. There are not many independent designers who make a living of their label there. And from the very start, they've been focused on social projects, on educating marginalized women in their small atelier. And they started with nothing. And I think that's a very inspiring aspect, which Stella continued on.
We used actually our pocket money and a small venue in Tirana when everything started. We are working hard every day, striving to be a premium brand, because we are selling internationally. And we have a showroom in Switzerland who's actually selling our products, but not only that. It's another e-shop in Monaco, another Sweden, and Abu Dhabi, and other places, of course. We have clients all over the world, so we we'd like to become a premium brand and to expand it. But we started small in Tirana, in a place that we did also training for other women, for women that were they didn't have any schools or they didn't have any education. So I tried to teach them, and that's how we started. And in exchange, we had the place there for free, so I could work on my spare time there and work on my designs and on my products. And then we hired people, other tailors and seamstresses to make that and to produce a lot more clothing garments, because we started as a pret-à-porter house, but now we are expanding also in bridal and evening wear.
So 2 young people with big dreams, very hard work. She's saying it, but I know they work very hard. They realized their dream there. And I think that's a beautiful example. Ray is the next generation of factory owners. As I said, he's my age, he's also 25. And we see now that the factory owners are passing on their companies to their children. And as we heard from Gary, these children grow up in a world that's so different than the world that their parents grew up in. Because we are completely interconnected. We have smartphones. We see what our classmates and colleagues in other countries are doing. So this generation of factory owners grows up with a very different type of awareness and knowledge of what is happening in the world. And then the students. We did a workshop during the film trip with the students, because these are the girls from the Polytechnic University in Tirana. They study textile engineering. They're girls from the fashion design department of the Academy of Arts. So they are being educated as designers or as technicians or textile engineers. But how much engineering is there to do in an industry that only focuses on this part of the process? So we asked them bluntly, what are you going to do after school? And they said, well, I'm following my mom or my aunt in the factory because, they don't need my skills. So probably I'm going to follow them up and earn a minimum wage. What else is there to do? Or some of them were figuring out that they could travel abroad and go somewhere else, or choose a different profession. Of course, there's another option, the bold one, the one that Gary and Stella took. But by talking with these girls and talking about different ways of entering the industry and different ideas about the industry, I saw a twinkle in their eyes that, maybe makes it worth to go back again. One of them is Fiona, our assistant. And I started to realize that she wasn't our assistant, but she was the very core of this project. And she was the very reason, actually, that I came back. Because I met Fiona during the second trip for CSR Netherlands, when I was giving a workshop at the Academy. This was in April this year. A workshop about sustainable business models in the textile industry. And Fiona was part of that workshop. But it wasn't planned so, because her teachers didn't select her to be part of this workshop. So she just showed up anyways. She ignored that and she just showed up. And you should know that Fiona is about this size. So she was showing up to me. And the first thing she said, she came in and she said, "Don't tell anyone I'm here." And I thought, oh, okay. I don't know your name, so it's going to be easy. And the rest of the workshop, she was the most active and most motivated and dedicated student. And she was leading her group, and she was presenting very, very enthusiastic, and I just thought, wow, that's cool. And after the workshop, she came up to me and she said, like, this was something completely new. That everything that we talked about today is something we never talked about before. And she said, it makes me think, and I want to do more. And she said, please do something with me, use me, give me something to do, anything. And she asked, with the big brown eyes, will you come back? There was no way of saying, no, I don't come back. And as you can see. And so, yes, we came back. And I figured, well, if she wants to do something, she can help out with the transcribing all the interviews. Because conducting 30 interviews, transcribing everything, because there's a research behind this, of course, I couldn't do all of that by myself. So she cleared her schedule for that whole week, skipped school, and she was just working with us tirelessly. And when we interviewed everyone after a week, well, actually I figured, okay, we can go home now. We have everything, it's a wrap-up, let's go. And we decided to interview Fiona as well, since she joined us during that whole week. And actually I was curious, like, did she learn anything? And this is what came out.
How do you see the potential of your generation?
As I've seen my friends, they want to work a lot. They are hard workers, and there is not a part that they say, I'm too lazy, I don't want to do that. They always want to do something new. They're always curious about things, but they need a chance. Everyone deserves a chance, so they need a chance to prove that thing. My generation can do a lot, since we came after the regime, and we didn't try that part, but we heard the history. So what we can do is that we can change things. They don't have, like the generation of our teachers, they had the chance to do something new, but since we are seeing what they did, we can do better. We can also travel and watch what every other country is doing and take the good sides. We have that power. So if I become a teacher in the other years, I think I'm going to change a lot of things.
What's the first thing you would change?
The whole system.
What is the main thing you learned during all our interviews all over the place?
I knew that there are problems, but not that much. The most interesting part is the social company part, which I thought about it, but not in this kind of level. Like, I'm more inspired now. Whatever I'm going to do in the future, I want to be more social and to be not the strict director I was like teach to do. So even if I open a really small atelier, the people that I'm working with, I'd like them to be as close as they can to me. So I think the quality would be better, but always with some boundaries about the part of work. Everybody needs to do their job and to be appreciated on that part. So don't just complain, but start doing something, do something. Because it starts with an individual person and then the others. If we talk about Albania, we need some people to push us, like a lot of times. But with that little push, we can do like big things. I think chances are the best thing that can happen to everyone. Because everybody is good at some point. This trip, it didn't help just me. I'm thinking also about my friends, what I can do to them, what I can tell them about this trip. Because I know they didn't have the chance to come with me, but still, if I try talking, start with talking, and then we can create something else, maybe I could do better. I'm not just saying for the teachers, because I also have that power. Figure what you're doing wrong and then try to fix it. even with little steps. I'm not asking for a miracle in the moment. I don't know. You got me thinking a lot. I was touched this week a lot. Not just by the part of, not just the part of us as students, but also the part of the garment workers. Because that could be my mom working there, that could be like everyone that I know working there, so I'd like them to be happier.
Right after our trip, well, 1.5 months after our trip, Fiona quit school and set up a social business.